All right. Good morning. Good morning. It is 7:30 here on the East Coast, and it is March 6th, 2023. My name is Michael, and welcome to my very first podcast. I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. Sorry for the glare in the background. Oh my God. There is a spider. Ah, right there in the window. I think that might be a brown recluse. Let me deal with that, folks. All right, folks, I was in the middle of recording something and I turned up. This was above me. I don't know if that's a brown recluse or not, but it just fell, which works in my favor. I don't want to kill it, so I'm going to try and scoop it up and put it back outside. Don't know how we're going to coax this guy to get in my container, because I know he is going to take off as soon as I try to trap him. Now he is in there. And it worked out pretty well. All right, bud. Let's get you outside. Put a top on you. Don't scare me. Oh, it's so cold out here. I don't think spiders kind of like this very much. All right. Let's see where we can take this guy. And he's probably like, oh my God. He's probably freaking out like, what in the world? Be absolutely still, be as flat as possible. But go, be free. There he goes. See you, buddy. It's freezing out here. Please don't be coming back in. He's heading back towards the house. All right, folks, welcome back. I don't know if we count that as my first guest, but when I turned around to address the sunlight coming from my um, top window, I saw you can't necessarily see, but there was a spider sitting right there looking down at me. And I didn't kill it. That was my initial reaction, but uh, I decided to capture it and uh, put it outside. It worked out well. I have a bunch of stuff over here that I'm going to be referencing later in the episode, and moved it out of the way. And I had these two cooler jugs, and I was going to try to scoop it in, but it had fallen down into the floor momentarily. I recorded it on my phone, and I'll try to incorporate it into the show as I review everything. But got him, and he's outside. He started heading towards under my deck, so he'll probably come back in eventually because it's much warmer in here. It was cold out there. Anyways, bear with me. Like I said, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I want to talk about some things that are stirring within me. And I think it's important to, I guess, seize this moment. And it's an opportunity for me to start producing. I keep a lot of stuff internalized and try to process it that way, but I think it is time to put it out there and see what happens. I've given this a couple, I don't know, maybe times of trial and error. I've done some moto vlogs and put those on YouTube, And there's a lot to editing, especially with video editing. I haven't done any, I've done some audio recordings, but I haven't posted anything. So um, here we are. I'm giving this a shot. So, I'm going to share with you what I've been reading, and there's like an underlying theme here from a few different books that I have read or am currently reading, and some of my own anecdotal evidence from my own experiences, particularly yesterday. So let's transition here and talk about this. Now, listen, I am not forcing anything down anybody's throat. You have the right to believe whatever you want to believe. This is just things that I'm reading and some of the things that I believe in, and I'm just sharing it. That's all I'm doing. I'm not trying to convert you or whatever the case may be. I'm just trying to show you a common theme of things that I'm reading from various genres of books and then expressing it to you. All right. Now, this is from a book called Living Fearless by Jamie Winship. And the subtitle is Exchanging the Lies of the World for the Liberating Truth of God. And I had read this part early on, but a while back, and picked up on it again and started rereading. I haven't finished the book, but in this particular part of the book, it's part 2, and it's titled Awareness. And there's 3 faces of me: the real, the true, and the false, that he talks about. Now, in the part of that, You're the Welcome Wagon, starts on page 64, but I want to bring you to page 66. Towards the end here, it says, but God in his love and patience presses us forward. We can feel it down in our heart as we sense, let's do this new thing. Then when we dream and have an idea and think, I can do this. And then in our mind, we say, no, no, no. Why? Because I'm not worthy. I'm filled with shame. I'm afraid, so I cannot do it. This type of thinking hurts us. If we could live and lead with our heart, what a different life we would experience. Once the heart and mind are brought into balance, with the mind serving the heart, we can live with an unconflicted mind. I'm going to read that again. Once the heart and mind are brought into balance, with the mind serving the heart, we can live with an unconflicted mind. Can you imagine living with an unconflicted mind where your heart and mind are always in sync? Sorry, it's seasonal changes, so I'm a little sniffly and congested. Sniffly and congested. Sniffly. We're going to have to Urban Dictionary that one. I don't know if that's a real word. All right, anyways. Can you imagine living with an unconflicted mind where your heart and mind are always in sync? And even greater, your heart and mind are in sync with each other and they're in sync with God. Imagine living like that. Now, I'm not talking about some religious magic world. I'm talking about real life, like on a Monday morning. I know who I am, and I know how to align my heart and mind in relationship with God. And as a result, I can do anything in my true identity. Now, let's preface that with this previous paragraph that he wrote. The heart sees each thing anew all the time. However, the brain says, nope, we've seen this before. We got hurt. We're not doing it again. And as a result, when God says, hey, I have a thing I want you to do in your life, it's going to be incredible. The typical response from our rational mind is nope, too risky. Think about it. Think about Moses when God first called him to lead the Israelites. His response was, find someone else who is a better speaker, or Gideon, whom God calls his mighty man of valor. His response, nope, I'm the least in my family. Okay? So, I want to talk to you about basically your mind, your heart, your identity, who your true self is, because I'm trying to figure that out in the middle of my life. And I want to put this out there because, anybody can pick this book up. This was recommended to me and given to me by a dear friend of mine and mentor that looks out for me. And I'm going to come back to this as we continue on. But let's talk about that. How many of us have done that where we feel something stirring inside of us and then our brain's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Think about it. Costs too much money. We can't do this. Like all that negative talk that comes in from our mind and our thoughts. And what do? We listen to our mind. And then our heart stops, that stirring feeling. And we know it. You get excited. It's like an adrenaline rush. And you're just, it's passion. It's pure passion. So, but that mind, where does that come from? Where does that come from? Huh? And why do we listen to it? Are we our mind? Are we our heart? What, I'm curious, and I guess I'm trying to figure out how to do it, of why people will listen to their negative mind. And even if they try to counter it with some type of positive thinking or attributions or whatever the case may be, sometimes the negative self or negative thoughts win. There was a book that has been recommended by a lot of people, and I had a gift certificate to a local bookstore here in my hometown. Thank you, Penny. It was a Christmas gift certificate, and I used it to buy this book called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And it's quite a fascinating book. I'm in the middle of it. And just like, whatever you want to label that book, Christian reading, religious, whatever, you transition. I don't know much about Dale Carnegie. I just heard about this book and found it at the bookstore and wanted to read it, and because it's recommended, and many successful people and millionaires and billionaires have read this book, and God knows who else throughout the ages. And I just found it funny or intriguing that this theme that I've been reading about is everywhere. So I have an updated one for the next generation of leaders, Gallery Books. Not sure when this was. This is a May 2022 edition. Anyways, page 73. This is in, I think, part 2 or chapter 2. I know he has different parts. Part 1. So this is part 2, chapter 2. And it's titled A Simple Way to Make a Good First Impression. And on page 73, he writes, everybody in the world is seeking happiness, and there is one sure way to find it: by controlling your thoughts. Happiness doesn't depend on outward conditions. It depends on inner conditions. It isn't what you have or who you are or where you are or what you are doing that makes you happy or unhappy. It is what you think about it. Now think about that. Okay? For example, I kind of glossed over this. Two people may be in the same place, doing the same thing. Both may have about an equal amount of money and prestige, and yet one may be miserable and the other happy. Why? Because of a different mental attitude. I have seen just as many happy faces among the poverty-stricken farm workers toiling in the devastating heart of the tropics as I have seen in air-conditioned offices in New York, Chicago, or Los Angeles. And he quotes Shakespeare here: there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And he quotes Abe Lincoln, remarking that most folks are about as happy as they make up their minds to be. So that's interesting. This is controlling your thoughts. And in case you're wondering, what he talks about and tells you a simple way to make a good first impression, he talks about smiling. Talks about smiling, which is interesting, because I notice I don't smile a lot. There is a lot of negative talk that I give myself. And so he talks about smiling, and he says, suppose you don't feel like smiling. Then what? Two things. First, force yourself to smile. Force yourself. If you're alone, force yourself to whistle or hum a tune or sing. Act, take action as if you were already happy. And that will tend to make you happy. Here's the way psychologist William James put it. Action seems to follow feeling. But really, action and feeling go together. And by regulating the action, which is under the more direct control of the will, we can indirectly regulate the feeling, which is not. Thus, the sovereign voluntary path to cheerfulness, if our cheerfulness be lost, is to sit up cheerfully and to act and speak as if cheerfulness were already there. Again, he says, I'm going to read this again. All right, this is psychologist William James. Action seems to follow feeling, but really, action and feeling go together. And by regulating, controlling your thoughts, okay, regulating the action, which is under the more direct control. So we have control of this. We have control of this. Nobody else. We can indirectly regulate the feeling, which is not. So, talks about controlling your thoughts and what happens. What happens when that negative talk comes in? Did you know you can control your thoughts? Okay, well, what happens when a thought arises? Why does that happen? I can't explain that. I would have to Google it or talk to somebody that knows more about the mental side of things. But I can share my own personal experience that I've had with my own negative talk and my own mental game. And that's that I've felt both sides of this. And yesterday was a perfect example. And like I said, I'm going to get into that. I want to read another part of this. He references another person, Albert Hubbard. Sorry. And he says, peruse this bit of sage advice from the essayist and publisher Albert Hubbard. But remember, perusing it won't do you any good unless you apply it. So take action. Okay. Whenever you go out of doors, draw the chin in, carry the crown of the head high, and fill the lungs to the utmost. Drink in the sunshine, greet your friends with a smile, and put soul into a handshake. Every handshake. Do not fear being misunderstood, and do not waste a minute thinking about your enemies. Try to fix firmly in your mind what you would like to do, and then, without veering off direction, you will move straight to the goal. Keep your mind on the great and splendid things you would like to do, and then, as the days go gliding away, you will find yourself unconsciously seizing upon the opportunities required for the fulfillment of your desire, just as the coral insect takes from the running tide the element it needs. Picture in your mind the able, earnest, useful person you desire to be, and the thought you hold will transform you, hour by hour, into that particular individual. Thought is supreme. Preserve a right mental attitude, the attitude of courage, frankness, and good cheer. To think rightly is to create. All things come through desire, and every sincere prayer is answered. We become like that on which our hearts are fixed. Carry your chin in and the crown of your head high. We are gods in the chrysalis. So, this talks about our thoughts, our hearts, and our minds, and how if we've been hurt before or wounded in some type of way, our mind reminds us of that and logically or rationally says, hey, let's not do that. And so what I think happens, because we are creatures of habit, we'll either be traumatized or wounded or hurt or, feel some type of emotional or mental pain, or maybe even physical pain. Take a hot stove. You put your hand on it once, ow, you burn yourself. Your brain's going to be like, hey, let's not do that again. All right. But in a case of like heartbreak, where you're going to live a lonely life because you've had one bad relationship and somebody broke your heart? Or do you process it mentally? You experience that pain. And instead of just casting off every other person that you could have a potential relationship with, you recognize certain things and maybe take a different approach. You control your thoughts, you communicate. And then, Carnegie talks about controlling your mind, controlling your thoughts. And it's interesting. He says happiness doesn't depend on outward conditions; it depends on inner conditions. So environment, and he talks about two people can be in the same place, and one can be completely and absolutely and utterly miserable that they're there, and the other can be delighted and fascinated that they have an opportunity to be in the position that they're in. And I have been on both sides of that. I think we all have to some degree. And I think the problem is, or what happens, like I said, we're creatures of habit. We get in this routine of where we're listening to our mind instead of hearing it and processing it and leading in a different direction. And I think it's almost like an auto response. It's like a flinch or a reflex. Like, ooh, that hurts. Nope, let's not do that. Oh, nope. Don't want to be with that person, or nope, don't want to work that job, or whatever the case may be. And what he recommends is smiling. Now, there's a book that I read before these two. Excuse me. Called 21 Rituals to Change Your Life by Teresa Chung. I don't know. I'm sorry. Anyways, I picked it up just because I like the number 21. It was a sports number for me, and I saw it, so I was like, I'm sold. On an impulse, really. That's another thing. Like, it's impulsive. Like, sometimes the negative talk is impulsive, and we react instead of respond. Those are two different things, reacting and responding. Well, anyways, I read this whole book, and she breaks the 21 rituals into 7 rituals that you do throughout the day. So you have your morning ritual or routine that you do, and then throughout the day you have your next 7, and then in the evening time you have the last 7, and then you repeat that for 21 days. And you're supposed to see the difference. So what's interesting is that ritual number 5, smile in the mirror. Okay. And she talks about what she does is talk about the ritual, quotes some different people, the benefits of why smiling helps you, her own anecdotal evidence, roadblocks, practicing. She gives like practical advice, and then bringing the ritual to life. So, and then she summarizes everything in the last bit of each ritual that she talks about. So, as she quotes Mother Teresa here, we shall never know all the good that a simple smile can do. Smiling boosts your mood and generates positive emotions because it actually changes your brain. Smiling changes your brain? Children smile a lot more than adults, around 300 times a day compared to our 20 or so smiles. That's so wow. And I get it. Okay. I am an adult. I have lived this adult life for a couple of almost 2 decades now. And I get it. I've been through everything that any other adult can complain or bitch about or whatever the case may be. And the fact that we forget this, and it's creatures of habit. We get wounded, we're traumatized, we're hurt, we experience pain, and then we become disgruntled and just sad. And like you can see like your literal physical self changes. Have you ever seen a sad or miserable person and just Just look at them. And then you look at a happy person and just compare the two. 300 times a day compared to our 20 or so smiles. And that is probably why children make us feel happier. And even in Carnegie's book, he talks in that How to Impress People, the first part of that chapter that I was reading from, he references a doctor's office where everybody's like waiting, to see their doc about whatever. And a lady comes in with her baby, and the baby turns towards a gentleman that was distraught about having to wait so long. And the baby smiles, and the man smiles back and ends up talking to the woman about his grandchildren and all this, that. Studies also suggest that smiling can reduce stress and be as energizing as a good night's sleep. What? Wow. Smile. That's all you gotta do. Here's another quote from Mother Teresa that she put in here. Every time you smile at someone, it is an action of love, a gift to that person, a beautiful thing. And this is a roadblock. She's talking about roadblocks. Practicing smiling in the mirror can feel a little embarrassing at first, but if that is your roadblock, read about the benefits of smiling more and how research confirms how powerful practicing smiling can be. Don't let embarrassment, that's a feeling, especially when nobody's looking, block your progress. So if you want to look good and help yourself and others live longer, healthier, and happier lives, you know the answer. Smile. So this was an interesting book. Nothing like revolutionary or new about it, but just a different take, because a lot of people are like focused on habits. Oh, I got to change my habits. Yeah, habits are good. You want to change your habits. But what she does is she also addresses, like, it's not just the thought process. Like, I can think positive thoughts all day long, but if I don't take action on it to reinforce, you can't think your way out of certain things. So, there are some things I agree with and some things I don't. That's all I can say. But what she talks about is, like, instead of, if we ritualize it or make it like a personal thing to us, it will be more meaningful for us to change our habit. All right. So here's another book that I read from time to time. It is a field manual, and he is on many platforms. It is a field manual titled Discipline Equals Freedom by Jocko Willink. He's most prominently known for, motivation and working out and jiu-jitsu and everything of that nature. Anyways, this book, this is his first edition. I also have the second one. And this is good stuff. If you don't have this book, go get it, because it's not like a normal read. He has different parts in this book, and part one are thoughts, and part two are actions. So there's thought and action. Okay. This drives the action. The thought in here generates ideas, and feeling, which goes down to here and stirs, and then the mind has to lead this because there's different things like follow your heart. Well, if your heart's not in the right place, then you're going to follow your heart into not a good place. But if you take your mind and analyze everything and are in sync or in balance with your heart, then you can lead your heart into action. So there's a couple thoughts that I want to share with you from his book, his field manual. One is the person you can control. People are not who you want them to be. Kill your idols. So, geez. Even Jocko, sure, there are things we can learn from people, but people aren't going to be what you think they are, what they should be. People, even those people you have put up on a pedestal, are going to be faulted, weak, egomaniacal, condescending. They are going to be lazy, entitled, short-sighted. They will not be perfect. Far from it. That's fine. Learn from their weaknesses, of course. Learn from their strengths and mimic and copy them in what they do well. But equally as important, learn from their faults. See what not to do. Because you can't control other people. You can't make them what you want them to be. You can't make them who you want them to. Can't make them what you want them to be. You can't make them who you want them to be. And if you force them, the only person you can control is you. So focus on making yourself who you want to be. Faster, stronger, smarter, more humble, less ego. Discipline your body, free your mind, get up early and go. Get after it, and you will become the person you want to be. And you become that person through one small decision at a time. All right? One small decision at a time. And that goes into his next thought titled Mind Control. When people think of the words mind control, they think of people controlling the minds of other people. Not me. I think about controlling my own mind. Sure, we are physical beings and we must obviously embrace our physicality, but we are our minds. And I'm not going to go philosophical on what that means and where the you actually is, whether it is a soul or your brain or your heart or some other conjured up place. What I do know is this: you, your mind, the thing that is reading and comprehending these words right now, that is you. And you control it. You are the machine, and you can control it. You can control it. People ask me, how do I get tougher? Be tougher. How can I wake up early in the morning? You wake up early in the morning. How can I work out consistently every day? You work out consistently every day. How can I stop eating sugar? You stop eating sugar. You can even control your emotions. How can I stop missing that girl or guy or whoever broke up with me? Stop missing them. You have control over your mind. You just have to assert it. I'm going to read that again. You have control over your mind. You just have to assert it. You have to decide that you are going to be in control, that you are going to do what you want to do. Weakness doesn't get a vote. Laziness doesn't get a vote. Sadness doesn't get a vote. Frustration doesn't get a vote. Negativity doesn't get a vote. Your temper doesn't get a vote. So next time you are feeling weak or lazy or soft or emotional, tell those feelings they don't get a vote. You are declaring martial law on your mind control. Impose what you want on your brain. Discipline, power, positivity, will. And use that mind control to move your life where you want it to be. Stronger, faster, smarter, quicker, friendlier, more helpful, more driven. Don't let your mind control you. Control your mind. And then you can set it free. Now, Jocko obviously overgeneralizes some things, but what he does is he has a way of motivating those that might be stuck, and he's done incredible things since his career in the military. And I'm not saying don't bottle. He says, laziness doesn't get a vote, sadness doesn't get a vote, your temper. Obviously, our emotions and feelings are a part of us. But they aren't necessarily who we are. I'm not a sad person. I'm not an angry person. I get angry sometimes. I get sad sometimes. I feel frustrated, but I'm not a frustrated person. Which is interesting because I'm going to go back to the Living Fearless book. Excuse me. Because we do this. We label ourselves with our negative talk or with, with however we perceive ourselves. Wow. All right. So back to Living Fearless. And what's in a name is this subchapter. He says, throughout Scripture, the concept of identity or naming is very important to God. Consider Jesus' baptism at the initiation of his public ministry. In those days, Jesus came from Nazareth in Galilee and was baptized by John in the Jordan. And immediately coming up out of the water, he saw the heavens opening and the Spirit like a dove descending upon him. And a voice came from the heavens, "You are my beloved Son, and you I am well pleased." Mark 1:9-11. The author goes on to say, Jesus has always possessed this true identity, but here it is spoken publicly by God in order that the community might know and participate in it. And in the same way, our true identity must be received from God within community. True identity can only be known by truth-telling. Truth-telling moves us from what is real to what is true. This is important because what is real to me isn't always true, but what is true is always real. And I thought that was interesting. It's this is important because what is real to me isn't always true, but what is true is always real. And it goes into that. I must be willing to acknowledge and confess the real me in order to understand the true me. The real me is telling the truth in any and every situation. For example, if you ask me if I love God, speaking realistically, my answer would have to be, I don't know. Do I want to love him? I think yes, but in reality, I do not know what it means to wholeheartedly love an invisible, formless, ultimate being. I hope and long to love God. I do. That's the real me. God sees the true me whom he created. This is what I'm moving toward. I'm moving from the real me, the God have mercy on me, a sinner, to the true me, the you are my militant peacemaker. Let's go do it together. Come with me, follow me, give me your burden and take mine. Let's go. That's the true me. Unfortunately, where most of us live is in the false me, and the false is not even real. I feel unworthy because I accept the false identity that I am unworthy. I am unworthy is an identity statement. It's a label that we give ourselves. And when I live in my life according to this identity, it's painful. This is the false me. When a person says to me, I'm addicted to pornography, I say, that's not who you are. You are describing an action. That's not an identity. What is your identity? A person who is addicted addicted to pornography has an identity that permits them to be addicted to pornography. You're saying, you're labeling yourself that, you're thinking that way. And just like Jocko says, how do I stop eating sugar? You stop eating sugar. What's that identity? Unworthy. Unworthy people hide in secret rooms and places where they can't be rejected because they've been rejected, so they're traumatized or hurt by that. So their mind says, nope, let's not have a relation. I can't open up to people. So I'm going to go somewhere where I can get that feeling of relief or where I feel desired or wanted. And then all this shame comes from it when we're supposed to be delighted in that moment. It's fleeting. It's a feeling. Shame-filled people waste hours alone in solitude. They live in these dark, isolated places because they believe no one wants to be with them. They believe because they think that way. They become, it's second nature to them. Like, I'm not wanted or desired, so I'm just going to create my own desires that fulfill me temporarily. And then you're back into your shame-filled, guilty life cycle again. And that feels true. It's not real. And it's definitely not true. But we interact with people as if their false identity is real and true. I'm going to read this again. Unworthy people hide in secret rooms and places where they can't be rejected. Shame-filled people waste hours alone in solitude. They live in these dark, isolated places because they believe no one wants to be with them. And that feels true. Feelings are fleeting. Not a good foundation. It's not real, and it's definitely not true. But we interact with people as if their false identity is real and true. Perhaps my neighbor is hostile toward me, so I return their hostility. In doing so, I verify and validate this false identity. But why does my neighbor hate me? Perhaps they're experiencing fear, guilt, and shame, which they project onto me. Then I self-protect and self-promote because my neighbor's violence makes me feel powerless and unworthy and fearful. So I project back onto them, and here goes the conflict. The war begins. Now, what if he just smiled back at him? You know, he goes on talking about I guess a personal experience with somebody that he interacted with. What was it? He was in another country and he was talking with somebody from another organization and they exchanged this conversation and he expanded on that. And he talks about King David. And what his identity was. And he ends that chapter with, according to the Bible, if you sense from God that you are a healer of nations and you're currently working at a gas station, you should start pursuing the skills to become someone who heals and who brings healing on a large scale. God only speaks to you in your true identity. That's the only way he'll ever talk to you. So if you ever find yourself where like, God, where are you? I'm here. Shift your perspective on who you are. Stop coming to him in a false identity. He's not talking to a false you. He's always communicating to the unique, worthy, and loved true you. Can you hear him? So, you have that as well, which leads to yesterday and a personal experience. I actually took the time last night to write everything down that I did yesterday for the most part. So basically what happened is I'm talking from yesterday's standpoint. Today was a mixture of things. It's funny um, how the things you do from the previous day can wake up with you. And basically, what happened is that I stayed up late into the early morning hours of yesterday and slept really crappy. So I woke up in the blast of moods, as I put it, and basically wasted that whole morning. Um, you know, I played video games. I have old habits that die hard. And I felt like crap. I was in this false identity, as Jamie puts it, and I wasn't controlling my thoughts. I was letting them run rampant, and the sun was out. The sun's out now. It's a beautiful day outside here where I am. And yesterday was also beautiful. The sun was out, and um, after it was probably around 11:30. I mustered up the energy and went and got my motorcycle. Now, I love motorcycles. I enjoy riding motorcycles, and I have only been riding them for a short period of time, since 2017. And I've gone through 5 bikes so far. I'm on my 5th bike. It was actually my 4th bike, I think. But I've had 5 bikes total. And basically, I just needed to get outside and enjoy the day. And what I ended up doing was riding my motorcycle to various points that I've traveled to before. And obviously, it wasn't meant for me to be at those locations, because there's one mountaintop that I've gone to several times that I have discovered on my trips on 2 wheels. And up there is like a little venue spot, and it's got like a little makeshift open barn area where you can hold a meeting or a gathering or ceremony or some type of celebratory event. Like I said, it's a venue to host. There's a cross up there. There's a giant fire pit, and it's got a beautiful view of the mountain ranges around the area, and I loved it. Well, every time that I've gone up there, there's been nobody. Yet this one time that I go, there's somebody up there, and it was a older lady who was unloading something from the truck into the venue barn. And I played naive and innocent. I was like, "What is this place?" And I smiled and asked, if I could just explore around the area. And all I did was go on the other side where the fire pit and cross were, and enjoyed the peace and quiet for a few minutes. And just took in the landscape and the view that I had up there, and continued on. So eventually I found myself on a road that I had not been down. And she even pointed to a new trail that I had not been on that gets you up to that mountaintop. So I went down that, came out on a side road, and relocated myself, realizing where I was, and continued on a path that I usually take, and then went down another side street that I'd never been down. It just caught my eye, decided to explore it, and came across a 1-lane bridge. And off to the side was a creek and a little field, clear field. And I found a way to get over into the field on my bike, and decided to spend the afternoon there. I camped out, had some food and some tea. I read more of the book on from Dale Carnegie, and captured that moment with a couple pictures, and thoroughly enjoyed myself. After my time there by the little creek, I got back on the road and took the motorcycle back to where I keep it stored, and was hopping in my truck, and I took a picture of myself, and I want to show it here because you can see how I was just in a totally different place, and my smile was genuine, my expression was genuine. It was true, and I could really feel that, and yeah, it's amazing how powerful we really are, and at the same time how fragile we are. And I think it all starts here and right here. These two things are connected. And this thing, yeah, I don't know which one's a bigger battlefield, your mind or your heart. Your mind can get so stuck in a set pattern that you just go on autopilot. And a lot of people go through life like that. And it's quite depressing, actually. You know, that folks do that. And I'm right there with them. But we got to realize we're in control of that. We're not these labels that we put on ourselves of unworthiness or shamefulness, or I'm a bad whatever, or I can't do this. That I can't do this. Oof. Man, that is a mantra that I've lived by that. I've lived by that. But we have control, and it starts here. It really does. And our brain is so powerful. It's just a matter of how we react. So we become impulsive instead of respond. And when these thoughts come flooding in, it kind of keeps us fixated into this narrow world that we create for ourselves. And basically what they're saying is that we control our thoughts. You have control. A thought comes in maybe out of nowhere. You're like, where did that come from? Why don't you do that? Stop. Ask, where did that come from? Explore that. And then counter it. If it's a negative emotion or thought, counter that with the opposite. There's a reason why firefighters don't fight fire with fire, because it would just build a bigger fire and do more destruction. They have things that fight fire to put out the fire. It's the same thing with our thought process. And again, flip the spectrum. You're happy, go lucky, positive, whatever the case may be. Those are emotions, and they are just as fleeting as depression and anxiety, and maybe not as crippling, but too much of a good thing could potentially be just as damaging. You can overhydrate and die. Think about that. You're 70% made of water, but if you overhydrate, you could potentially kill yourself. So it's all about balance. It's having that heart and mind in sync, and then leading the heart with your mind. And if you're stuck in this negative mindset, or whatever the case may be, the first step is smiling. Smile. Look at yourself and smile. Tell yourself you're happy. Act happy. They say act happy. You hear people say act your age, grow up, act your age. Okay. But if you're feeling sad, Okay, maybe process that feeling, but why sulk in it? Why do you want to be sad the entire day? I was having a crappy morning the other day, and I was like, you know what? I need to get outside. I want to get on my motorcycle. And there were so many excuses I could have. Oh, it's like half an hour away to get my bike. It's too cold to ride. God, I got to get ready. We got to pack this, that, and that. If I want to do this little camping thing and cook out, where am I going to go? And so on and so forth. And those are all roadblocks and obstacles that I just, I shoved them to the side and just started taking action. Sometimes you just have to shut off that negative talk and just go. Just go. Get up and go. And that's what I did yesterday. And yesterday turned out to be a fantastic day. I had a wonderful day yesterday and enjoyed it thoroughly, just being in the sunlight and riding on two wheels. So yeah. So let's wrap this up. Okay. Let's end with a Jocko-ism. This thought is titled "Laughter Wins." Sure, there is darkness everywhere, and I have seen my share, but that is not where I live my life at all. In fact, the opposite is true. I am not wandering around suffering in despair. No, I am having fun. Fun. I am laughing, I am joking, I am clowning around, making fun of everything and everyone, especially of myself. I'm an easy target to poke fun at, and I'm good with that. Because sure, life is tough, but it gets a lot easier when you're laughing at it. So, despite the suffering, in fact, to spite the suffering, to spite the hardships, to spite the challenges, laugh at them all. They can't stand it when you do. And they all get easier. Yes, laugh at them all. Laughter wins. So, if you have a hard time smiling, find something that makes you laugh. And something innocent too. Don't let it be perverse. And look, this guy's smiling. He's smiling. Go out there, look at yourself, smile at yourself. Don't label yourself these negative things and false identities. Your true self is much more powerful, and embrace that. And the first step is smiling and controlling your thoughts and taking different actions to negate that negative world that you live in. All right, folks. Well, that does it. Thank you for listening and tuning in. Not sure when I'll do another one, but this was sitting on my heart for some time, so I wanted to share it. I want to thank the Brown Spider as my first guest, and until next time, go out there and smile, laugh, and enjoy life.